ships vanish, planes disappear, radios go silent. Welcome to the Bermuda Triangle, 500,000 square miles of ocean where the laws of nature seem to bend.
Is it science? Is it myth? Or maybe something far stranger? Let's step into the fog and find out.
Okay, so you might think you know the story of the Bermuda Triangle, right? But we have really taken a deep dive here. We've got stacks of sources, old historical accounts, scientific analyses, newer investigations, even cultural commentary.
Yeah, and we found some genuinely surprising stuff in there.
Exactly. So our mission today is sort of to sort through all these claims, the counterclaims, and just the sheer mystery that's floating around this famous patch of the Atlantic.
We're going to look at what the official groups say, or maybe what they don't say. We'll dig into the details of some of those famous incidents, explore the scientific explanations.
And then get into the really weird stuff, the speculation.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of a journey through fact, folklore, and maybe even a bit of human psychology. Why are we so fascinated by this?
All right, let's start with the basics then. Where exactly is this place? Because, everyone knows the name, but you look on a map.
And it's not there. Precisely. The sources generally describe it as this region in the North Atlantic. It forms a rough triangle between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, give or take.
Right, rough triangle.
But the key thing, looking at official sources like NOAA or the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, they don't recognize it. It's not an official location, not a designated hazard area. The Coast Guard doesn't list it either.
And yet, everyone knows its name. It's almost like the mystery itself draws a stronger line on our mental map than any, official line ever could.
That's a great way to put it, because sometimes mystery draws a stronger line than science ever could.
Interestingly, though, the term Bermuda Triangle is actually pretty modern, isn't it? Like the 1960s?
That's right, coined in the 60s.
But reports of weirdness in that general area, they go way back centuries, actually.
Like Columbus, didn't he mention something? He did, yeah. One of the earliest accounts people point to is Christopher Columbus, 1492. His journals apparently mention seeing strange lights in the water, and also his compass acting up, behaving erratically.
So even back then, navigators noticed something maybe a little off.
Seems like it. Those early observations definitely laid some groundwork for the tales that came later.
And those tales, they're often built on really specific, sometimes chilling incidents. Let's open the casebook. These famous disappearances are really the fuel for the whole legend.
They really are the touchstones. Probably the most famous one is Flight 19. That was 1945.
Right, the Navy planes.
Exactly. 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers. They were on a routine training flight out of Florida December 5th, and they just vanished.
It seems simple enough, right? A 3-hour mission, weather was clear at the start.
Apparently, yeah. But the details that came back from the flight leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, are critical. Reports indicate his compasses failed both the main and the backup.
Both.
Yeah, and other instruments started going haywire, too. So confusion about where they actually were set in pretty fast.
And there was disagreement, wasn't there, about which way to go?
That's right. According to the reports we have, Taylor thought they were somehow over the Gulf of Mexico and ordered the flight east. But some of his crew, they apparently thought they were already east of Florida and should head west, back towards land.
A fatal navigational debate, essentially.
It seems that way. And the sources add this kind of telling human element, too. Lieutenant Taylor apparently had a history of getting lost at sea before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and one source even mentioned he was seen without a watch before that specific flight, described it as unprofessional. Then the weather got worse. Darkness fell. The last radio transmission was around 7:04 p.m.
And then silence. Just gone. All 5 planes.
Tragically, yeah. And the story gets even worse. A search and rescue plane, a Mariner aircraft, was sent out to find them.
Don't tell me.
It also disappeared, with its 13 crew members gone.
No way.
Yeah. Later, a tanker ship reported seeing a big explosion and an oil slick right around where the Mariner would have been searching.
An explosion?
It's worth noting, as some sources point out, that specific model of Mariner plane did have a known issue with vapor leaks, so maybe that explains the search plane.
Maybe. But the original 5 Avengers, what was the official Navy conclusion for Flight 19?
The official inquiry pointed mainly to navigational error. Basically, they got lost, flew until they ran out of fuel. Simple, perhaps.
But still unsettling that neither the original flight nor the search plane were ever definitively found. No wreckage confirmed.
Exactly. It just adds layers to that mystery narrative. No wreckage, no signals, no closure.
Okay, what else is in the casebook? The USS Cyclops, that's another big one.
Huge one. 1918. This was a massive U.S. Navy collier ship, one of the largest, fastest of its kind back then, carrying over 300 people, and get this, 11,000 tons of manganese ore.
Manganese, that sounds heavy.
Extremely dense. Way denser than, say, coal, which it was perhaps more designed for. Anyway, it vanished without a trace after leaving Barbados in March 1918.
And the last message.
Eerily calm, apparently. Something like, weather clear, all well. No SOS, no distress signal. An extensive search turned up absolutely nothing.
And the Navy's official take?
They officially called it one of the most baffling mysteries in naval history. Just gone.
But like Flight 19, there are more mundane theories now, right?
Well, yes. Over time, a likely explanation has emerged, and it's highlighted in the sources. Structural failure due to that heavy cargo. The Cyclops was likely overloaded with that super-dense manganese ore.
Ah, the weight.
Exactly. And this theory gets a boost because two of her sister ships, the Proteus and the Nereus, suffered similar fates during World War II, also while carrying heavy ore.
So maybe not so mysterious, just tragic engineering limits.
Possibly, but again, no wreckage ever found, which keeps the mystery alive for many.
And the list goes on. You mentioned the witchcraft.
Yeah, 1967, a luxury yacht. Supposedly disappeared while anchored just 1 mile from shore, which seems incredibly close to vanish without a trace.
That is close. And the Carol A. Deering.
That was a big schooner, 1921, found run aground off North Carolina, but completely abandoned. The sails were set, food was apparently out, but no crew. The FBI looked into it, ruled out piracy, sabotage, rum runners, just empty.
Weird. And there are others. Connemara IV.
1969, yeah. Another yacht found adrift, empty. That one seems explained, though. Hurricane Janet apparently dragged its moorings while the crew was ashore.
Okay, so some have explanations. What about the Hollow Kiki? That sounds more recent.
2008, an unmanned boat found near the Bahamas. The search then found a capsized boat nearby with 4 dead passengers. Grim story.
Jeez. It seems like a mix of genuinely strange stuff and things that might have explanations if we had all the facts.
That's often the case. And then you get stories that really blow the line, like the Ellen Austin legend from 1881.
Oh, yeah, I think I've heard this one. Found an abandoned ship, put a crew on it.
That's the popular version. Ship finds an abandoned derelict, puts a prize crew aboard to sail it to port. Then a storm separates them. Later, they find the derelict ship again, but the prize crew is gone.
And sometimes the story says it happened again.
Yeah, sometimes the legend adds another layer, a third encounter, also crewless. It's a really captivating ghost ship story, often linked to the Triangle.
But is it true?
Well, that's the thing. The sources we looked at note that while it's a great story, it's incredibly hard to verify. The records from that far back are sparse, unreliable. It's a perfect example of how a tale can grow and become part of the lore, even if its historical accuracy is, shaky at best.
Okay. So faced with all these accounts,
Yeah.
the documented, the legendary, the possibly explained, people obviously want answers.
Yeah.
Explanations.
Naturally. And our sources cover the whole spectrum, from the grounded science to the really out there stuff. Let's start with science and logic. What could be happening?
Right. What about just bad weather?
That's a huge factor. The region is absolutely notorious for violent, unpredictable weather. Sources talk about hurricanes, tropical storms, obviously, but also sudden, intense downdrafts, thunderstorms that can create winds hitting the water like a bomb.
Like a bomb. That sounds devastating for a small plane or boat.
Exactly. The sinking of the tall ship Pride of Baltimore in 1986, though technically outside the common triangle boundaries, is sometimes cited as an example of that kind of sudden, catastrophic weather event.
Okay, weather. What else? The Gulf Stream.
Yes, the Gulf Stream is a major player. It's basically a fast-moving river within the ocean. Current speeds can reach over 6 feet per second.
That's fast.
It is. And it means if something goes down, wreckage can be swept away incredibly quickly over vast distances. Makes finding anything extremely difficult.
So evidence could just be carried away before searchers get there.
Precisely. And then there's the geography itself. Lots of shallow water, especially around the Bahamas and in the Caribbean part of the Triangle. Reefs, shoals.
Treacherous navigation, especially back in the day.
Right. Running aground was, and still is, a real risk. Easy to see how ships could get into trouble that way.
Okay, weather, currents, geography. What about the magnetic stuff? Columbus mentioned compass problems.
Yeah, this comes up a lot, the idea of compass variations or magnetic anomalies. Now, it's true that compasses point to magnetic north, not true geographic north.
Hmm.
And the difference between the two, called variation or declination, changes depending on where you are.
And the triangle is special somehow.
Well, there are places called agonic lines where magnetic north and true north happen to line up. If you're navigating near one, especially with older instruments, or if the magnetic field fluctuates, it could cause confusion. However,
There's a but.
there's a big but. The crucial point from the scientific sources we consulted is that extensive surveys have found no unusual large-scale magnetic anomalies in the Bermuda Triangle area. Nothing that would mysteriously pull planes out of the sky or spin ships around uncontrollably.
So normal compass variations happen everywhere, but nothing uniquely weird in the triangle itself, according to the data.
Not that science has detected on a grand scale, no. So while compass issues could contribute to someone getting lost, it's not some unique magnetic vortex.
Okay, what about methane hydrates? That sounds dramatic.
It does. This theory suggests there are large deposits of frozen methane gas trapped in sediment under the seabed. If these were destabilized, maybe by seismic activity, they could erupt suddenly.
Like an underwater gas explosion.
Sort of. It would release huge amounts of methane bubbles. These bubbles would drastically lower the density of the water above the eruption, so a ship floating right on top
Would just lose buoyancy.
Exactly. It could sink incredibly fast, almost instantly without warning, like dropping through a hole in the water.
Wow, that's a powerful image. Have they shown this can happen?
Lab experiments with model ships have shown the mechanism is physically possible. If you bubble enough gas through water, a model boat will sink.
Another but.
Another crucial detail from the sources. While the deposits exist, there's simply no evidence of recent massive methane hydrate releases occurring in the Bermuda Triangle area. The last known major events of that kind in the region were apparently around 15,000 years ago.
Okay, so scientifically plausible in theory, but no geological smoking gun for recent disappearances.
That seems to be the consensus in the sources, yeah.
Sometimes the scariest answer
Yep.
is the simplest one.
And often that points right back to us. Human error. It's the most frequently cited explanation in official inquiries, like the Navy's report on Flight 19.
Navigational mistakes,
Yeah.
like LT Taylor potentially getting lost.
Or poor maintenance leading to equipment failure. Structural weaknesses, like maybe with the Cyclops. Or just plain stubbornness, people sailing into bad weather despite warnings. Sources mention cases like Harvey Conover and his yacht Ravonok sailing into a hurricane.
Right, when you look at the sheer volume of traffic ships, planes, yachts crossing that busy area, combined with challenging weather and geography.
It's unfortunately statistically likely that accidents will happen. And human error is, sadly, a common factor in accidents everywhere, not just in the Triangle.
But of course, human error and bad weather, they don't quite satisfy everyone, do they? Especially when no wreckage is found.
Not at all. And when science gets silent or the logical explanation feels, I don't know, too mundane, well, the stories get louder.
Oh, absolutely. And this is where we dive into the really speculative stuff, the theories the triangle is truly famous for.
This is where the imagination takes flight, or perhaps takes a dive. Unidentified submerged objects USOs feature pretty heavily in some accounts.
Underwater UFOs, basically.
Kind of, yeah. Sources mention hundreds of reports annually in the region. Witnesses describe glowing objects, metallic-looking things, circular or cigar-shaped, moving underwater in ways that known vessels can't.
Any specific examples?
One source tells the story of a witness named Tony Roberts, who apparently saw a strange light, maybe 6 to 10 feet across, circling his boat underwater.
Okay, a 6-foot glowing object buzzing your boat underwater is definitely not normal.
Not your everyday fish, no. And the theories about what these USOs are vary wildly. Some speculate they're alien craft using the oceans as cover. Others connect them to, believe it or not, Atlantis.
Atlantis, lost underwater city tech.
That's the idea for some. One source even quotes a Russian Rear Admiral, Yuri Bekov, supposedly confirming frequent encounters by their Navy, tracking objects moving underwater at incredible speeds up to 250 miles per hour.
250 miles per hour underwater. That sounds impossible for anything we know how to build.
According to that source, yes, far beyond known capabilities. And some people, some experts cited in these sources, believe these USOs are actually responsible for the disappearances.
How? Like attacking ships?
That's the theory. Sinking ships, maybe abducting people. The sinking of a Greek cargo ship, the Leader L, back in 2000 is sometimes brought up. Reportedly, survivors claimed it was struck by a metallic object and went down in less than a minute.
A minute. Wow. Are people actually looking for these things?
The sources mention a specific group, a trig team, using things like side-scan sonar to actively search the seabed for USO evidence.
And have they found anything?
They reported finding unusual objects, strange craters on the seabed, even patches of weirdly shiny sand.
Shiny sand. What could cause that?
Well, the speculation in one source links it to intense heat. Maybe from a lightning strike, maybe a meteor impact, or connecting the dots, maybe evidence of a UFO or USO crash or energy discharge.
So the jump is easily made from USOs underwater to UFOs in the sky and aliens being involved.
In the speculative theories, absolutely. It ties together aliens using underwater bases, abducting ships and planes, leaving behind puzzling evidence.
It definitely makes for a wilder story than pilot error. Any other strange theories floating around?
Oh, yeah. There's the idea of time warps or portals, the hypothesis that maybe space-time is unstable there and things just slip into another dimension or time period.
Like a cosmic trapdoor.
Pretty much. And the Atlantis connection keeps popping up, the idea that maybe lost technology from the mythical city is interfering with modern navigation. Or maybe Atlantis is the origin of the USOs.
You can definitely see how shows like Ancient Aliens or History's Mysteries, which the sources mentioned, would have a field day with this stuff.
Absolutely. It provides seemingly endless material for speculation, far more dramatic than, fog and faulty compasses.
And that public fascination, that appetite for the dramatic and mysterious, really fueled the Bermuda Triangle becoming a cultural phenomenon, didn't it?
Hugely. Our sources really pinpoint the 1970s as the moment the legend exploded into the mainstream consciousness.
Right, the brand was born.
It was kind of a perfect storm, culturally speaking, especially in the paperback book market. One source really details how writers and publishers saw this massive public appetite for sensational, sort of true mystery nonfiction.
And they ran with it.
They definitely capitalized on it, perhaps a bit cynically, according to that source. You had this hangover from the 60s counterculture with its interest in the occult and unexplained mysteries. Plus, the whole UFO mythos was really taking off with dedicated societies, low-budget magazines.
So the audience was primed.
Totally primed. And there was this shift happening in those kinds of books, moving away from just dry, technical accounts of UFO sightings towards stuff hinting at vast unseen forces, government conspiracies, hidden knowledge. Think Von Daniken, Colin Wilson, that kind of vibe.
Right, collect a bunch of weird anecdotes, declare them inexplicable, and then hint at some grand, usually paranormal unifying theory.
Exactly the formula. And the Bermuda Triangle, with its growing list of spooky disappearances, was perfect fodder. A writer named John Spencer had a book called Limbo of the Lost in the late 60s, early 70s. That was apparently the first book focused solely on the triangle, and it got popular through radio shows.
But the really big one was Burlitz, right?
Oh yeah, Charles Burlitz. His book, The Bermuda Triangle, published in 1974, was the absolute game changer.
He wasn't originally a mystery writer, was he?
No, famous for his family's language schools. But he'd sold the business and had this personal interest in underwater archaeology, especially Atlantis. His book became the book, sold millions, translated globally.
What made it so successful?
The style, partly. Short, punchy chapters presented the accounts very dramatically, often left out or downplayed the mundane explanations, and strongly hinted at these mysterious, unknowable forces, electromagnetic disturbances, maybe aliens, maybe Atlantis tech.
Playing up the mystery, downplaying the potential facts?
Pretty much. And it's telling, as one source points out, that even in this massively influential book, Burlitz apparently misidentified Flight 19 as an Air Force mission.
When it was Navy.
Clearly Navy. A small detail maybe, but it shows how the narrative can sometimes steamroll the facts when you're building a legend.
And the timing was right, too. The 70s context.
Hugely important. Think about it. Post-Vietnam, Watergate, economic woes. There was this widespread loss of faith in government and official explanations. People were maybe more receptive to these narratives, hinting at conspiracies, hidden truths, things the establishment wasn't telling them.
So books claiming special knowledge about mysterious forces found a very willing audience.
Absolutely. And once Burlitz's book became a bestseller, TV jumped right on board. Shows like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, In Search Of, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. They explored these mysteries every week.
I remember. In Search Of, always spooky music.
Exactly. And then movies and even cartoons got in on the act. Scooby-Doo probably did a Triangle episode. Sci-fi thrillers like Close Encounters, E.T., Even adventure films like Indiana Jones or Star Wars, they all tapped into that public fascination with mysterious forces, lost artifacts, unexplained phenomena.
It really solidified the idea. The Bermuda Triangle became more than a place, it's a brand.
A global brand for the unknown.
Okay, so we've covered the history, the cases, the science, the speculation, the pop culture explosion. But let's circle back. What does the science actually say when you filter out the hype?
Right, when you apply that skeptical lens, looking at the actual data, the official investigations, a much less sensational picture emerges.
So is it real? Is the danger, the mystery, actually real in a measurable way?
Well, the official stance from bodies like the U.S. Coast Guard, the Navy, NOAA, the ones who deal with maritime safety and oceanography, is pretty clear. They dismiss the supernatural claims. They do not consider the Bermuda Triangle to be a uniquely hazardous area compared to other parts of the ocean.
No official "here be monsters" designation.
None whatsoever. And the consistent finding, repeated across multiple sources we looked at, is that there's simply no statistical evidence that mysterious disappearances happen more frequently in the Bermuda Triangle than in any other large, busy ocean area.
Wait, so all those famous cases, the Cyclops, Flight 19, they happen, but they don't necessarily make the rate of loss higher overall.
Exactly. While those specific incidents are tragic, and some remain baffling in their details, the overall rate of aircraft and vessel loss in that region isn't statistically anomalous when you account for the sheer volume of traffic, the frequent severe weather, and the navigational challenges.
So the number of incidents might seem high just because so many ships and planes pass through there.
That's a major factor, yes. More traffic plus challenging conditions, more incidents overall. But not necessarily a higher percentage of unexplained losses compared to, say, the North Pacific or other heavily traveled, stormy ocean regions.
And those scientific theories we talked about earlier, methane, magnetic fields.
While the underlying science is real, methane can affect buoyancy, compasses do have variation. The sources emphasize there's no direct evidence linking these phenomena specifically to an unusual concentration of recent, unexplained disappearances within the triangle compared to anywhere else. They're potential factors in any ocean incident, not unique triangle dangers.
Okay, so if it's not statistically more dangerous, and the wild theories don't have strong evidence, why does it feel so real? Why does the legend persist so strongly?
Part of it might be psychological. There's something called the Bader-Meinhof effect, or frequency illusion.
Okay.
Basically, once you learn about something or become aware of it, like the Bermuda Triangle legend, you start noticing it everywhere. So
Yeah.
any incident that happens within that loosely defined area gets mentally flagged and attributed to the mystery.
Ah, so you remember the triangle disappearances more easily because they fit the narrative you already know.
Precisely. It creates a confirmation bias, reinforcing the perception of a higher rate of strange events than the objective statistics actually support. You forget about similar incidents happening elsewhere because they don't have that famous brand attached.
So is it real? It depends on what you mean by real. The physical danger might not be uniquely high, but the legend, the idea of the triangle, that's undeniably real in our culture.
Exactly. Which leads us to the final question. Why? Why, despite the scientific pushback and lack of statistical proof, does this mystery continue to fascinate us so much?
It really taps into something deep, doesn't it? Our relationship with the unknown, it sort of scares us, but it also entertains us.
Absolutely. In a world where increasingly everything feels measured, mapped, explained by data, the Bermuda Triangle offers this pocket of persistent, open-ended mystery. It feels like a place where not all the questions have neat, tidy answers.
Where maybe, just maybe, something genuinely strange could happen, even if it usually doesn't.
That possibility keeps the allure alive. It's like a little corner of the map that still feels slightly wild, slightly unexplained, even if that feeling is mostly generated by the stories we tell about it.
Maybe the triangle isn't a trap. Maybe it's a mirror.
Ooh, I like that. A mirror?
Reflecting what?
Reflecting our own stuff, maybe. Our fears.
Of our fears, our wonder, and everything we can't explain. Fear of the vast, uncontrollable ocean, definitely. Fear of vanishing without a trace. But also reflecting our innate human wonder, our curiosity about what lies beyond the known, our desire, perhaps, to believe that the world isn't entirely predictable.
And it reflects our need for answers, but also maybe our love of a good question, a good mystery.
Exactly. Our willingness to embrace the puzzle, maybe even play along with the legend sometimes, just for that sense of awe and wonder it provides. The ocean hides countless secrets. And some stories, some legends like the Bermuda Triangle, just refuse to stay quiet, don't they?
Whether the real culprits are myth, math, or simple misdirection, the mystery definitely lives on. Not just out there in the sea, but deep inside us too.
Looking at all this, it really makes you think about the power of narrative, how a compelling story, especially one that taps into those deep-seated fears and wonders, can take on a life of its own, sometimes overshadowing the more mundane facts.
Yeah, the Triangle legend is a masterclass in storytelling in a way.
It really is. So maybe the takeaway for you listening is to think about that next time you encounter a mystery, big or small. Consider all the angles, the science, the potential for human error, the environmental factors, but also consider the story itself, why it resonates, and how our own minds might be shaping our perception of what's real.
Great thought. Thank you for being on this journey with us into the fog. Stay curious, stay grounded, and stay tuned for more.